The map itself is a map of England and Wales and a little part of Scotland, and it shows where beneath your feet there are different types of rocks. Different types of rocks of different ages, different characters of the rocks that could be used for different things. And it's a national treasure, this thing. We're very lucky to have it, even though we've only got it for a few months before it goes on tour. But this really is one of those pivotal moments in the history of our thinking and technology, where someone worked out how to predict where you might go to dig holes to find useful stuff. Tremendous. The guy behind it, William Smith, was a simple blacksmith's son from a little village called Churchill in Oxfordshire. He was humble beginnings, and he was orphaned, and so he went to live with his uncle on a farm nearby, and they decided he should have a trade. And they were very lucky to introduce him to a surveyor. And so they got him to learn the skills of someone who made maps of the land. He did it for various landowners, and particularly local gentry who had problems draining their land. So he ended up digging lots of trenches across the land and producing an absolutely amazing map from it.
And how did Dudley Museum actually get the map itself? I mean, how was it discovered?
Okay, well, it was purchased by a chap who was the senior paleontologist, the senior fossil guy with Natural England. They're based in Peterborough, and I know the chap well, Jonathan Larwood. He, or rather his father, came across this map in a bookshop in Norfolk when he was a student, realised how valuable and important this document was, and literally took a loan that was equivalent to his tuition fees to purchase this map. And then John sat on it, he's had it in his family archive for many years, realised that this was the 200th anniversary and he should do something with it, so he approached us. Well, the way it was created was this chap was digging trenches to drain land. He was sinking mines for the landlords, if you like, the gentry of the time, to find minerals for them. In doing that, he realised that time and time again, the same order of strata, the same order of layers of rock could be found. And so what he did was create a map where he could predict where they would appear just beneath the surface. And so he was able to use the map to say, okay, your lordship, dig a hole over here and we'll have some more coal and ironstone. And he then took that a little bit further and realised that certain layers had certain fossils. The fossilised remains of plants and animals that had lived millions of years ago. And he could actually identify from the fossils what would be underneath or what would be above. So he then went around the country looking for outcrops of rock, identifying the fossils and saying, okay, let's dig a mine here. So they used the map to create the wealth of the nation, to make some individuals with wealth and power even wealthier and even more powerful, to find resources that would be the clay to build houses, or the ironstone to make iron to power the Industrial Revolution, or all manner of other things. And in doing that, he actually changed the way people thought about the land and thought about the possibilities of making money. So it was an incredible invention.
Very fascinating. And what's been the influence of William on future geologists?
Well, William showed how using detailed and careful observations and piecing together the jigsaw from small pieces of the landscape, how you can predict all kinds of things. It's now become embedded as standard practice for geologists to learn his techniques, this humble blacksmith's techniques, and now the foundations of professional geology for all of us who go out there trying to understand the world and looking for useful minerals and resources.
And how successful was the map back in the day?
The map in the day was a really interesting entity because he was the first. And so, like everything you do the first time, you have your doubters. Like this TV channel maybe. When you start it up, people wonder where it's going to go, and they did that with him. He wasn't one of the accepted society's scientists. So at the time, he was viewed with suspicion. And it cost him his entire life savings to the point where he was bankrupt himself doing this work to try to show this, and ended up in a debtor's prison. So he ended up in prison for his own efforts. While he was in prison, another scientist copied his work and tried to publish his own version, realising the value. So there's a bit of a human, real intrigue going on around this man. However, William had one friend who was the then president of the Royal Society, who recognised the importance of what he was doing, who realised how special his efforts had been, how dedicated he'd been, and eventually became his champion and helped him to be recognised by society. In doing that, this chap also announced him as the father of English geology, the father of the science of geology, this humble blacksmith's son. Not one of the gentry, just a practical bloke who dug rocks.
So the map was very influential then?
The map changed the world and how we see it. It gave us an understanding of time, it gave us an understanding of the order of events that build the landscape that you and I are sitting on right now here in the Black Country. As geologists, you study the Earth and you study its processes, its past and where it's going. And part of that you learn about the processes that go on inside the Earth that affect the surface and change it. And one of those processes is called plate tectonics, where heat rises up from the core of the mantle of the Earth and moves around the big blocks of land on the surface very slowly, so that even as we're sitting here, we're gently moving towards Europe, and on the other side, America is gently moving away from us at the speed your fingernails grow. So it's a very slow process. And it slowly, over the millennia and millions of years, causes the whole surface of the Earth to change. Everything we know about the shapes of countries, where the mountains are, where the seas are, was very different in the past. But that process of slow movement of the plates has changed the entire globe. It's changed the climate, it's changed where water flows, it's changed the height of the land, it's even changed life on it. So we study these things, and we're always learning about the new and the old together.
So in, say, a million years, America is going to be in a completely different position to where we are in the UK?
Yeah, there's a big crack up the centre of the ocean called the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, and it's pushing things apart. As magma rises into it, it pushes. So America's going to slide over and around, further down, and we are actually going to crunch up against Europe and Africa. And eventually, Africa, Europe and us will all turn into one Eurasian continent. And that's not that far away in terms of geology. 50 million years and we'll be very definite part of the continent as opposed to a little island on the edge of it. And that's happening all the time as we speak. The only way we feel it is when we have earthquakes like the Dudley earthquake in 2004. And that's a reminder that the Earth's a very active place and we are shifting around on it.
So fascinating, Graham. And so what are you working on at the moment?
Well, at the moment our big project is called the Black Country Global Geopark. And that is a recognition that this area was a real centre for industrialisation, because they mined special resources of coal, fire, clay and ironstone and created an industrial revolution. Remaining after that period of time, we have wonderful assets of world-class heritage. And so what we're trying to do is celebrate those together as a whole territory, the Black Country, the 4 boroughs of Dudley, Sandwell, Walsall and Wolverhampton, as a single global territory, and we're going to share with the world those amazing world firsts and incredible heritage that the world benefited from during that industrialisation and the sharing of knowledge and inventions, a lot of which came from here, right here in the Black Country.
And just quickly, the exhibition going on at Dudley Museum regarding the 200-year-old map, when does it finish?
Okay, well it finishes at the end of September. So you've got a couple of months to come over to Dudley and see it, Monica. But it will then go on tour. First place is going to be Scarborough and then across to Dublin.